In August 2021, just 2 weeks after the Taliban's return, Afghanistan saw its first horrific terror attack, a deadly suicide bombing at the Kabul airport. It killed 170 Afghan civilians and 13 US service members. This attack was symbolic, a curtain raiser to the deadly scenario awaiting Afghanistan after Kabul had been conquered by the Taliban. The next catastrophe in a country and in the region marked by perpetual violence. In the next few minutes, I'll list out logistically why the Taliban's return to Kabul did not end the violence. Instead, it emboldened another set of jihadist groups that had been lurking in the shadows. Let me now tell you about the new chief perpetrators of terrorism, the Islamic State of the Khorasan province, or ISIL-K. It is an affiliate of the Islamic State. By bombing the Kabul airport in 2021, it sent a powerful signal. Another war had begun, and this time by the jihadists who believed that the Taliban was not sufficiently extremist. And so, the deadly game of global jihad now enters a new chapter. 1 year and countless attacks later, the ISIL-K's intentions are clear. It wants the power in Kabul. It wants to rule. It wants to turn Afghanistan into the epicenter of its global jihad. The question is, how does it plan to achieve this goal? Take a look at this report. It comes from the United Nations. It says that the ISIL-K have threatened to launch attacks against the embassies of various countries in Kabul. The aim is to undermine the Taliban's relationship with countries which have endorsed the Taliban regime, as well as those who have kept missions for the sake of continuity. So which states are we talking about? Who are the targets? The three main ones are China, Iran, and India. They are top of this list. This is what the UN report says, that the embassies of all these three countries are on the radar of this terror group. They could become victims of a ghastly attack. But we know that others are also under threat. All of this is mentioned in the 16th report of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Let me quote the most telling excerpts that should concern all of us. The activities of the Islamic State in Iraq remained a significant terrorist threat in Central and South Asia, and the group retained ambitions to conduct external operations by targeting diplomatic missions. Islamic State in Iraq also sought to undermine the relationship between the Taliban and the member states in the region. The group has threatened to launch terrorist attacks against the embassies of China, India, and the Islamic Republic of Iran in Afghanistan. It's all pretty clear. The timing of this revelation is also very significant. Some of you may recall that just a few days back, we told you how a host of countries were either evacuating their diplomats or downsizing their embassies in Kabul. The list included Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, and the UAE, and China. Did this have something to do with the ISIL-K's threat? It certainly seems like it. Did these countries receive any intel about the group's intentions? That assumption also seems logical. But what is certain is the resurgence of the ISIL-K. In the last 2 years, it has grown immensely in strength. From being a force of just 1,000 to 3,000 fighters today, it reportedly has a strength of 6,000 fighters. Some of them are new recruits from the Taliban itself. Battlefield commanders who are unhappy with the softer public line of the Taliban's central leadership. Others are foreign fighters, erstwhile commanders of the Islamic State's crippled caliphate in Iraq and Syria. Remember, both kinds subscribe to the ISIL-K's ideology. And what is that ideology? The establishment of a transnational caliphate that is governed by Islamic jurisprudence. Or should I say, the ISKP's version of Islamic jurisprudence. And this is where it differs from the Taliban. You see, ever since its return, the Taliban has projected itself as an ethno-nationalistic force, a force that is committed only to the people of Afghanistan. But the ISIL-K, on the other hand, aspires to be global in its outreach. It emphasizes on fighting two kinds of forces. One, the near enemy, or what it calls apostates in the region. Two, the far enemy, or what it calls Western crusaders. To put it simply, this group wants to have no dealings whatsoever with the West. It calls the Taliban a bunch of sellouts who have abandoned their higher calling of a global caliphate in the pursuit of their own goal of ruling Afghanistan. The group also doesn't agree with the Taliban's growing inclusiveness. Of late, it has started to incorporate political rivals and religious minorities. The ISIL-K vehemently opposes this narrative. Just look at the pattern of its attacks now. In May 2020, it targeted a maternity ward in Kabul, killing 24 people. The list included women and children. Most of them were from Afghanistan's Shia Hazara community. Then in March 2022, it bombed a mosque in Peshawar. A total of 63 people died. They were all Shia Muslims. In April 2022, there were explosions in Kabul, this time again in a Shia Hazara neighborhood. All evidence pointed at the ISIL-K's involvement. But the group's savagery doesn't end there. In the last 3 years, it has targeted not just the Shia Muslims, but also journalists, foreigners, former military personnel, even civilian infrastructure. Basically, everyone and anyone that it considers to be an enemy of its own version of Islam. And now, it seems to have set its eyes on foreign embassies, on the diplomatic missions of India, Iran, and China. So how do we perceive this? Well, from where we see it, this could very well be the beginning of a new wave of jihad. A wave which could threaten South Asia's security apparatus. A wave which will spare no one in its way. I repeat, no one. Be it the Taliban, Pakistan, its iron brother China, the Shia Republic of Iran, and of course, by account of its proximity and position in the neighborhood, India. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.